Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Yevamos Tzadikei. We are on the second line from the top of the Amid. So Reuven is married to Rachel. Then he goes ahead and interacts with Leah, who is Rachel's sister. It doesn't affect Rachel's status with Reuven. How do we know? Uminolan de Leah Sira. How do we know that Rachel is unaffected? This Sanya. Pasuk says, "V'shachavish oisa shechvazera." If one interacts with an Isha's Ish, she cannot go back home. Why does it say oisa, an extra word? To tell you shchiva so oisarta. Interacting with the Isha's Ish affects her status with her husband. Vein shchiva asachoy so oisarta. But interacting with her sister doesn't affect the other sister. It's not me, it's the other one. Why would I think that it affects Rachel? So if Reuven was married to Rachel and he goes ahead and interacts with Leah, the Achayis Isha, it has no effect on his status with Rachel. How do I know? Based on the pasuk. Why would I think that it does affect Rachel? Sheyachal, perhaps I would say, Validinu, based on localfile. Uma b'makim shabal isur kal. If one interacts with an isur kal, an Isha's Ish, why is it an isur kal? We'll see later. What happens? Severe ramifications. Nesara isur. The husband who is the cause for the Isser, he's the generator of the Isser, he restricts his wife, he doesn't allow her to interact with others, he becomes affected by this stranger interacting with his wife, even though it's an Isser Kal. Malkim Shabal Isser Chamer, certainly by the Achais Isha, by Reuven interacting with his wife's sister, which is an Isser Chamer, Einoidin Shanesar Isser, certainly Rachel, Reuven's wife, who's the Oyser in this case, she's the one preventing her husband from interacting with Leah, she should become affected. And that's why we have the pasuk which undoes that notion. However, here comes a brisa where we have a machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda, Beishama Beisila are in agreement in the following case. If one interacts with his mother-in-law, in that case, it affects his status with his wife. He can no longer stay with his wife. That's agreed upon by all. When do we have a machlekes? Reuven was married to Rachel and then goes and interacts with Leah. What happens to his status with Rachel? We have a machlekes. He can no longer stay with Rachel. It doesn't affect his status with Rachel. So according to Rabbi Yehuda's version, by mother-in-law, all agree he can no longer stay with his wife. But by sister-in-law, we have a machlekes. B'shamai say Pasal. Beisila says it doesn't affect Reuven's status with Rachel. Rabbi Yesi had a different version of this machlekes. Rabbi Yesi, he takes a more lenient approach. They're all in agreement. Reuven, who is Rachel's wife, a husband, interacts with Leah, the sister. All agree in that case. He can stay married with Rachel. She's unaffected. It's not like Rachel and Leah are one package deal. No. Rachel remains unaffected. All agree with that because we had the drasha, Oisa, right? When do we have a machlekes? By mother-in-law. Bebal Chamois interacts with his mother-in-law. In that case, Shebeshamer Oimim Paisel, it affects his standing with his wife. Ubesil Oimim Loi Paisel, it doesn't affect his wife. Now, why does Achais Isha not affect? Initially, Reuven can marry anybody. Likewise, Rachel can marry anybody. Kitcha, once Reuven does Kiddushin, going forward, what happens? Hu Oisra, he makes her Asra on anybody else. Vihi Asra Sai, she makes him Asr. To whom? To her relatives. Now, Meruba, Isur Sha'asra, the Isur that he imparts to her, is certainly greater and all-encompassing. May Isur Sha'asra Sahu, than the Isur that she applies to him. Why? Shehu Asra B'chal Anashim Shabayla. Going forward, he limits her ability. She can no longer marry anybody. She's designated for him. So it's an all-encompassing Isra, as opposed to Vihi, the Isra that she gives him is a very limited Isra. Lo Yasras Hu, Ela B'Karviyaseh. He can't approach her relatives, that's it. So his Isra to her is greater than her to him. Now, Balidinu, he will have a Kavachaymer. Umahu. If even this Isser, this great Isser that he applies to her, which no longer allows her to go marry anybody, It's a great all-encompassing Isser. Still, Shagiga ba'asrla. Let's say she goes and gets involved with Shagig, with a stranger. It doesn't affect her status with him. Eina ne'aseres v'mutala. She can still go back to Ruvain. Despite the fact that it's a real great all-encompassing Isser, it's not affected by a Shagig. He shalei esrasu ela b'krevus. Certainly the Isser that she gives him, the fact that he can't go get involved with any of her relatives, such as Achais Isha, right? His wife's sister. Of course, in that case, Shagag ba'asrlai, if it would have been done b'shagig, Eina din shalei nesrlai b'mutzalai, certainly it wouldn't affect his standing with Rachel. V'zeh din l'shagig. Okay, this Kavachimer works by shagig. But l'mezid b'nayim, what if Reuven goes and gets involved with Leah, his wife's sister, b'mezid? How do we know it doesn't affect his standing with Rachel? Tamar Leimar, that's the pasuk, Oisa. What's the extra word Oisa coming to teach? Shchiva sa Oisarta. Vein shchiva sa Oisa Oisarta. Getting involved with a sister doesn't affect the first sister. Amar Rabbi Ami Amar Shlakish. My time Rabbi Yehuda. Why did Rabbi Yehuda hold that interacting with mother-in-law affects wife? T'chsiv ba'esh yisrafu Oisoi ve'eshen. Pasuk says the penalty for this type of deed is we apply streifa to him and them. Who's them? Mother-in-law and mother? Mother-in-law and wife? As Rashi says, why does wife suffer? What did she do wrong? Answer is, rather than learn it literally, to apply streifa to both, of course you don't do that. Surah is coming to tell you that both are usher, meaning Reuven can no longer stay on with his wife as a result of interacting with her mother. Omar, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, however, Ein Aloch Rabbi Yehuda, we don't paskin like that. Wife remains unaffected. In fact, there was a story. Hahuda Avad Isura B'chamse, this fellow interacted with his mother-in-law. Ais Yeh Rabbi Yehuda brought him Nagde and gave him Malchus. Omar, he tells him, you're lucky. Ilav Omar Shmuel and Aloch Rabbi Yehuda. If not for the fact that we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, Asrita Aloch, I would have made your wife usher on you, Isura D'olam forever. But you're lucky we don't follow like that, and therefore your wife is mutter. So bottom line is, an Isha's Ish who goes and gets involved with a strange fellow, she becomes usher on her husband. What about Achais Isha? Reuven, who was Rachel's husband, went and got involved with Leah, the sister. We have a machlekes. What about if he got involved with his mother-in-law? Does it affect his wife? Machlekes as well. Now we started the Gemara with a Kavachimer. The beginning of the Amud. Why would I think that sister gets affected by her sister's interaction? We would have thought that it's usher because of a Kavachimer. We find that it can happen by Isur Kal. Certainly, it could happen by Isur Chamer. In the words of the Gemara, if we say by Isur Kal ne'asara Isur, if something inappropriate happens involving an Isur Kal, the Isur gets affected. The one who generates this, the source of the Isur, he gets affected. Certainly by Achos Isha, which is an Isur Chamer. So if Reuven, who was Rachel's husband, got involved with her sister Leah, Eino din shenasara Isur, the Isur. Who's the Isur in this case? The first sister, Rachel. She's the one who made Reuven Asur on Leah. She should become affected and become Asur on Reuven. My Isur Kal. We're going to try to decipher the wording of the Kavachimer. What are you using as an example of interaction which makes Asur? My Isur Kal. What's the lighter Isur that you're referring to? One cannot remarry his wife after she had remarried somebody else, right? So we have Reuven and Shimon. Reuven was married to Rachel, divorced her. Shimon married her. Reuven may no longer retake her after Shimon's passing or divorce from Shimon. It's called Machzag Rishas. It's an Isur Kal. It's only allowed. Now, Ba'aleh Shimon married Rachel after having been divorced from Reuven. Asr Alei Dehai. It makes her Asr on Reuven. Okay, you can't retake her. Simple. Now, what happens if he does? Ba'aleh Idach. Suppose Reuven goes and takes her in. That's an Isser Kal, a lav. It generates an Isser on the source, on Shimon, who's the Isser. He's the one who made her Asr on Reuven, right? Asr alei dehai, makes her Asr on Shimon. So we sought to use this as an example. How could you compare to the sugya of Achais Isha, Mala, Machzag, Rishasa? It's so different. Mishnah says, Shekei Nitma Haguf, there it's personal. This Isha Rachel went from one man to the next, of course. It has this effect. As opposed to Leah's interaction with Reuven, that's not personal to Rachel. Visura Baroiv, Rashi takes out these words. Visura Isser Olam, this Isser of Machzag Rishasa is forever. Reuven can never take back Rachel once she was divorced from him and remarried to somebody else. As opposed to Achos Isha, which isn't necessarily forever. Reuven cannot marry Leah as long as Rachel is around. But Rachel passes away, you can marry Leah, so it's not as severe. How could you compare? El Amr Rish Lakish, I'll give you the explanation to the Kal V'chomer. We're speaking about the Isser Kal of a Yevama. What happened? A Yevama was awaiting Yibum. Instead of waiting patiently for the Yavam, she went, interacted with a stranger. Yevama Laman, with whom did she interact? Ilem La'achar, a stranger. Ukd Rav Amnuna, Ta'amar Rav Amnuna, Shemeres Yavam Shezinsa Asur Yevama. We treat her like an Eshes Ish, as though she was bound to the Yavam like a wife. She does nus with somebody else, she cannot go back to the Yavam. So here we go, an Isser Kal was committed, it's only a lav. And it results in her becoming Asr on the fellow who's the source, the reason for the Isser, the Yavam. Again, how can you compare to our case of Achos Isha, Mali Yevama Shekei Nitma Haguf? It's a personal experience. She becomes affected. She did nus, not her sister. Visur Baroiv, it's something that applies to everybody out there. She shouldn't be interacting with anybody except for the Yavam. As opposed to Achos Isha, which is a personal Isra on Reuven, the husband of Rachel. It's more limited. How could you compare the two things? Who says it would have the same halach? Eli Yevama la'achan. At times, the Yevama could be usher to the other brothers. How? Avad bar mamar hai. There were a couple of brothers, Yevamin, waiting for Yibum. Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Shimon did mamar, some sort of kiddushin to the Yevama, which designates her to him. Asr alei dehai. Going forward, she can't go and marry the other brothers. What happens if the other brother did interact with her as married? Asr alei dehai. Makes her asr on Shimon, the source of the Isser to begin with. So it's an Isser Kal. And we see that it has this effect. My area Shabbat Sheni. This is not really a good comparison, because the Isser there isn't necessarily because the other brothers interacted with her as married. It's not an Isser Bia. Afilu Avad Banami Mamar. Even if the other brother would have done Mamar, the same result would have occurred. If Shimon does Mamar, designates her for him, and then Levi does the same, it makes her Asr on Shimon. Holy Kasha, that wouldn't be a Kasha. We're following the Shita Domer, Ein Mamar Chamamar, there's no double decker Mamar. Once Mamar is done, it's been expended, it can't be redone by the other brothers. Okay, so that wouldn't be a possibility, but we do have other possibilities of the other brothers interfering, even without interacting as married. The other brother does a get, or chalitza, she's now become puzzle to the first brother. So it's unrelated to bia, to those types of experiences. So that's not what we had in mind. Elam Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. Oh, Reuven was married to Rachel. She acted inappropriately. He warned her, and now he has to take her to the Bezdin Hagadol in Yerushalayim and give her to drink the Mei Soita. Until that happens, Reuven and Rachel may not continue living as married. So what happened? What did she do wrong? Soita Laman. With whom did she interact wrongfully? Ilam Labal, with her own husband. Ba'aleh Baal. Husband interacts with her physically. Asura Ali the Bayal. That makes her Asur on the other, the troublemaker, the perpetrator. Shimon, let's call him Shimon, the Bayal, who was really the reason for the Isser to begin with. So because somebody committed an Isser Kal, her husband interacted with her physically, inappropriately, was prior to giving her the water to drink, that experience makes her asr on Shimon. That's unrelated to Reuven interacting with his wife. I feel an asr get, even if for some other reason he didn't give her the water. Suppose he divorced her before giving her to drink. Or even if he says, look, I refuse to give her the water. Bottom line is, he didn't give her to drink. She's asr on him. And in that case, she's asr on Shimon as well. Rashi says, we learn in Masechah Sotah, it says, nitma, two, twice, one for the Baal, one for the Boil. Even if Reuben passes away, she can't go to Shimon, the Boil, the troublemaker, because until she drinks the water and clarifies her situation, she's asr on both. So it's unrelated. It's not a result of, it's not an issur that resulted from her husband interacting with her as married. It's just circumstantial. The kini v'stira, the warning and the going into hiding, all that made the issur. So that's not an option. That's not going to prove anything to our case. What happened was, Reuven was married to Rachel, and she went ahead and interacted with Boil, with Shimon. So that interaction makes her asr on the oiser, the source, the reason for the isser, the cause of the isser, meaning her husband, who made her asr on everybody else. So here's an example of a halacha where interacting with somebody makes her asr. Asks the Gemara, okay, that works, but hay isser kalhu? Why are you calling this an isser kal? Isser chamaru. It's the most severe isser. Haynesh ish. Elamar, Rabbi, you're right. Ish is ish. Exactly, right on. This is the case that the Brisa was referring to. V'chenki asur Rabin. He also said the name of Amar B'yechna, ish is ish. No, v'mai karli isser kal. So in fact, why do we call it isser kal? Because in some way, it has a leniency. Although it's very severe and difficult, but it's only a relatively temporary isser. She'ena oisra, because the husband who makes her asr on others, it doesn't last forever. Eina oisra oisra kal yamav. It doesn't necessarily last throughout his lifetime. If he gives her a get, the isser becomes rescinded, so we call it isser kal. Tani nami hachi, we have the same in a brisa. Abachanan amar mishon balazar, eishas ish. We are using the eishas ish as a precedent, as an example. Uma b'mokim habal isser kal. Since we find that if a person interacts with an eishas ish, it's isser kal because she'ein ha'isra, because the husband that makes her asr, it's not going to be isra kal yamav. It doesn't last throughout his whole lifetime. Even while he's alive, he has the ability to rescind the isra through a get. Still, we say, look at the severe ramifications of this experience. Nesar isra, by her interacting with a stranger, the isra, the husband who generated the isra, becomes affected. Certainly by Achos Isha, Rachel and Leah, sisters, and Reuven, Rachel's husband, interacts with Leah, which is considered Habal Isur Chomer. Why is it Isur Chomer? Because it lasts throughout Rachel's entire lifetime. She can't rescind that Isur from Leah, her sister. Sha Isra, Isra Kal Yamav. Certainly in that case, Einoy Din, of course, it will have the same result. Shanasa Isra, by Reuven, Rachel's husband, interacting with Leah, the sister, Rachel should get affected. Only direct experience makes you asr. But indirect experience, my sister, has no effect on me. So bottom line is, we discussed 3 cases where the oiser perhaps will become asr through an interaction b'mesid. What happens by an eishes ish? Yes, eishes ish interacts with a stranger. We learn from the pasuk of Nitma, he can't take her back. She becomes asr on the oiser, which is, in this case, her husband. What about Bayachas Isha? Reuven was married to Rachel. He interacted with Leah, the sister. According to one approach in the Gemara, yes, Rachel gets affected. We have this Kal V'chomer, and they don't have the drasha of oisa. Whereas the other opinion works with the word oisa, ein shchivas achoisa sarta, Rachel is unaffected by Leah's experience. We had another machlokes by Chaim Moisa, interacts with his mother-in-law. According to one shita that affects his wife, we learn from the pasuk Oisai ve'eshen, his wife is affected. The other shita will not expound on this drasha, his wife remains unaffected. Let's go back to the Mishnah. So back on Tzadok Dal Beis, 5 lines from the top. We have the case of Reuven, who was married to Rachel, And Rachel's sister Leah was married to Shimon, who was actually unrelated to Reuven. So Shimon, in fact, is Reuven's brother-in-law, his wife's sister's husband. Rachel, Reuven's wife, left town. So did Shimon, Leah's husband. They mistook them for dead. Reuven went and married Leah. What does the Tanna Kama say? Although Leah can't go back to Shimon, when it turns out that Rachel and Shimon are alive and well, she can't go back to Shimon. It's like an Ashes Ish who went and remarried erroneously. We apply a knas, we penalize her. You should have looked into the matter better. Should have been more conscientious. You can't go back home. But Reuven can retake Rachel. Rabbi Yossi says like this. Rabbi Yossi Eimer Kol she'poisel adei achirim, poisel adei atzmei. V'chol she'enoi poisel adei achirim, enoi poisel adei atzmei. What do you mean to say? Says the Gemara, Ma'ikol Rabbi Yossi, what did he have in mind? Tanakama. Was he referring to the Tanakama? Was he responding to what the Tanakama said? Then the case where the Azal Ishtay V'Gisel Dina Sayam, Reuven's wife Rachel, and Shimon, who is Gisay. Gisay means he's Reuven's brother-in-law. So Rachel and Shimon left town. They mistook them for dead. Reuven went and married Leah. And both Rachel and Shimon show up one day. What happens? Tanakama says, Eishes Gisay Asira. Leah cannot go back to Shimon, as we explained, but V'ishtei Sharia. Reuven can retake Rachel. So it's not a package deal. We could split the two women apart. She's mutter, she's asur. Rabbi Yossi responds, no. It's one package deal. Just as Reuven can retake Rachel, and she's unaffected by this experience. We'll understand that the fact that he interacted with Leah doesn't affect Rachel. Likewise, Leah is free to go back to Shimon. Because everybody understands that it was just one big mistake. If that's what Rabbi Yossi was trying to say, why did he word his statement the way he did it? Instead of saying, Kol she'ein poisel adei achirim, if it doesn't affect the other person, ein poisel adei atzmai, his wife is unaffected as well, with the starting point being the other fellow, he should have worded it in the reverse. Kol she'ein poisel adei atzmai. If his own wife is unaffected, Reuven can retake Rachel. We understand this whole thing was a mistake. Ein poisel adei achirim. Mi boile. It doesn't affect Leah's prospects with Shimon. That's how he should have presented it. If he was trying to apply a kula, just like Reuven can retake Rachel, Shimon can retake Leah. Ve'ela. Oh, apparently he was saying something else. He was being machmer. Just as Leah cannot go back to Shimon, Reuven cannot retake Rachel as well. Why? Just as we treat this marriage between Rachel and Leah as if it's a legitimate marriage, to the extent that Leah cannot go back home. Likewise, we shouldn't allow Rachel to go back to Reuven either, because it appears like Reuven was married to Leah, Rachel's sister. He can't go and marry Achois Ishtoi. It appears like Rachel is the wife of his sister Leah. Is that what he meant to say? Both are asur? Okay. There were two parts of Yoshi's statement. He said, Kol she'poisel adei achirim, poisel adei atzmai. If Leah cannot go back to Shimon, then Reuven cannot retake Rachel. Okay, that's the first part. But what about the second part of his statement? Kol she'ein poisel, the negative. If it doesn't affect the other one, it doesn't affect me. What do you mean with that? We've explained the first half. If it affected the other person, it affects me. But kol she'ein poisel, the second part, if it doesn't affect him, it doesn't affect me. What is that in reference to? I'll explain. Aresh, he's going back to the beginning of the parak. In that first Mishnah, way back in the beginning of the parak. This woman's husband left town. She receives word that he's no longer amongst the living. We have two different cases in the Mishnah. If it's 1/8 enabling her to remarry. That's called Al Pi Bezdin, utilizing the power of Bezdin, who accepts the aid, who believes the aid, relying on the fact that she will be Daiko Mitzvah, she'll take matters into her hands and investigate the matter properly. So this is Al Pi Bezdin. Teitze, her husband turns up, she has to leave her new husband, of course, Uptura ben HaKarban, but no carbon is required because after all, Bezdin initiated the process. Al Pi Eidim. But if two Eidim allowed her to remarry, Teitze, of course, she must leave her current husband. When her real husband shows up, v'chayevas bekarban. In this case, she has to bring a carbon. Why? Yafa koicha shel bezdin sheptar ben carbon. The fact that Bezdin was involved in the first example with the Eid Echad, a process initiated by Bezdin exempts you from carbon. We already discussed this at length. We have two types of cases. One aid enabled her remarriage. In that case, if it turns out to be mistaken, she's in hot water. You should have investigated. We were relying on you. The heta was based on your daiko mitzvah. You can't go back home. There's a knas. She can't go back to her husband. Two Eidim allowed her to remarry? She's not at fault. It was an inus. Her husband turns up, she can go back home. So we have two separate cases. Back to our Mishnah. Reuven was married to Rachel. Leah was married to Shimon. Rachel and Shimon left town. Reuven thought they both died. He marries Leah. They both show up. What happens? The Tanakama maintains it doesn't matter what the circumstances were. Who was mater? 1 Eid, 2 Eid, doesn't matter. Lo yishna al pi Eidim. Whether 2 Eidim were the ones who allowed Leah to remarry in this case by claiming that Shimon passed away, which in this case she would be lucky because the Eisha's Gisa Sharia, Leah, the wife of Reuven's brother-in-law, basically Leah, Shimon's wife, can go back to Shimon because she's faultless. 2 Eidim, right? So whether it's this case where Leah can go back to Shimon, or whether it was only 1 Eid who enabled Leah to remarry, in which case, if it turns out to be mistaken, she cannot go back to her husband. The Eishes Gisa Asira, in which case Leah cannot go back to Shimon. Either way, it doesn't affect Rachel's prospects with Reuven. Reuven can retake his wife. Leah committed something wrong. She didn't isser. She wasn't careful enough. She remarried without properly investigating. She is penalized. But what do you want from Rachel? She can go back to Reuven. It's not a package deal. You can have Leah asa to Shimon, but Reuven can remarry, can retake Rachel. That's the Tanakh. Rabbi Yossi has nothing doing. It's one or the other, all or nothing. If we come with Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi says like this: Al pi bezdin. If Leah was enabled by the Eid Echad, in which case when Shimon surfaces, she's usher, she can go back to Shimon. The Poisel Eid Echer, in which case Reuven's interaction with Leah makes her usher on Shimon. Right? We penalize her, she can't go back home. In this case, Poisel Eid Atzma, it affects him as well. Reuven himself cannot retake Rachel. You know why? It almost looks like he was married to Leah. The fact that his interaction with Leah makes her usher on Shimon gives that marriage some sort of impression of legitimacy, of reality. How can you go now and marry Rachel, who appears to be the sister of your wife Leah? So if Leah is usher to Shimon, Reuven cannot marry Rachel. It appears like Reuven was already married to Leah, now he can't retake Rachel, the sister of his wife. But, Al Pi Eidim. If Leah remarried based on Eidim, husband shows up. In this case, she can go back to Shimon. She's not held at fault. We let her go back. In this case as well, Reuven can retake Rachel. So it goes hand in hand. So if she's stuck, then he's stuck. If there was 1 Eid that gave her the heter, so Leah can't go back to Shimon. So it almost appears like she was really married to Reuven. Right? That makes her also back to Shimon. So now Reuven, who was married to Leah, what's he doing taking back Rachel, the sister of his wife? But if the two Eidim were here and gave Leah the heter, in which case even when Shimon shows up, she can go back to Shimon. Okay, so the whole thing was a mistake, null and void. So Reuven can retake Rachel as well. So according to Rabbi Ami's approach, Rabbi Yossi was differentiating between the two cases. If Leah is asa to Shimon, Reuven can't retake Rachel either. If Leah is mutter back to Shimon, Reuven can retake Rachel. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Amar, he's going to put it a bit differently. In concept, he agrees to Rabbi Ami that according to Rabbi Yossi, it's a package deal. It goes hand in hand. Either Rachel and Leah are both asr or both mutter. Lo ilam as-seifa. But we're not relating back to the first Mishnah in the Perek, which contains the halacha of two Eidim. No, we're going straight on this most recent Mishnah, where the green light for Leah to remarry came about through one Eid. And even in that type of case, we can find a distinction. In one type of situation, both Rachel and Leah can go back to their husbands. In another type of situation, they're both asr. What does it depend on? If Reuven was only engaged to Rachel, and then Rachel and the Gis, the brother-in-law Shimon, left town, etc., the whole story happened. When they return, everybody's asr all around. The Azli ishta v'gisei, as opposed to if Rachel was married to Reuven, and this whole incident ensued. In this case, Rachel goes back to Reuven, and Leah to Shimon. V'ka'amar Tanakama begins by saying, Lo yishna ishta v'gisei. Doesn't matter whether she was actually married to Reuven, Lo yishna risasa v'gisei, or she was only engaged to Reuven. The halacha is the same. After this whole incident, what is the resulting halacha? Eishes gisei asira. Leah cannot go back to Shimon because Eishes Ish, who was involved with another man, cannot go back home. It's a knas. She was careless. V'ishtei sharia. Reuven can retake Rachel. She did nothing wrong. That's Tanakam. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says, look, depends. You see, he disagrees fundamentally. He has a different approach to the whole perek, to the whole sugya. Why, if an Ish gets involved with another man, why can't she go back home? Not because of knas. Rather, it may appear like the first husband divorced her, and she remarried. He can't take her back. So now, Ishtei v'gisoi, if Reuven and Rachel were married, the lekala memar tno havali b'nesuin, nobody's going to propose that the marriage didn't hold, that there was a condition that didn't materialize. You don't do that by marriage. Reuven and Rachel were married. So now that he mistakenly went over and married Leah, thinking that Shimon wasn't no longer alive. So in this case, nobody will think that Shimon divorced and Reuven married. Reuven can't marry Leah. He's already married to Rachel. So his involvement with Leah won't affect her status with Shimon. Remember, according to Rabbi Yossi, it's only because it looks like he's retaking the Gerusha. Well, everybody knows that Reuven's involvement with Leah was mistaken because we know he was married to Rachel. He can't marry Leah. So this episode, this involvement will not be poised like the Acher, won't affect her status vis-a-vis Shimon. She can go back to Shimon. That's Rabbi Yossi's Chiddush. Tanakama learns, no, it's a knas. A knas, maybe in this case. No, Rabbi Shimon works with the concept of, it looks like he's retaking his Gerusha after she had remarried. Well, in this case, she didn't remarry. She didn't go to anybody. Reuven and Leah are not a match. And therefore, says Rabbi Yossi, what's the flip side of that? So Reuven can retake Rachel. His interaction with Leah was mistaken. It wasn't a marriage. So why can't I go back to Rachel? Nobody will think that Rachel is the sister of my wife Leah. Leah is not my wife. So that's the first part of Rabbi Yossi. This is actually a kula. But now we have a chumrah. Arusa v'gisei. Suppose she was his arusa. Rachel and Reuven were only engaged. People can say, well, why did Reuven go and marry Leah? Oh, apparently that engagement didn't really work out. There was a t'nai, it was conditioned on something, it didn't materialize. They will lend credence to this relationship between Reuven and Leah, assume it's valid, legitimate. And now when Shimon returns, Shimon must have divorced, followed by Reuven marrying Leah. Now he's retaking his divorce Yatzasr, and therefore it's going to make her puzzle to Shimon. And since she's puzzled on Shimon because of this speculation, because people will attribute credence to this relationship, they'll say, Reuven was married to Leah. If that's the case, then he can't retake Rachel, because now Rachel appears like the sister of his wife Leah. So according to Rabbi Yossi, it's always a package deal. Either they're both Asr or they're both Mut. Okay, let's just summarize for a minute. So we have the case of Ishtay and Gisei went to Medina Sayyam, right? Reuven was married to Rachel, Shimon to Leah, Rachel and Shimon disappeared. Reuven thought they passed away. He went and married Leah. What happens? Tanakama says, look, straightforward. Shimon cannot retake Leah. It's a knas. She was careless. Like every Isha that remarries by mistake, she can't go back home. But Ishtay Materis, Reuven can retake Rachel. Rachel did nothing wrong. Rabbi Yossi says it depends. It's a package deal. It goes hand in hand. Rachel to Reuven, Leah to Shimon go together. Whatever happens to one happens to the other. We have two ways to understand Rabbi Yossi. Rav Ami, who explains like this. Rabbi Yossi starts by saying, look, if Leah's puzzle to Shimon, then Rachel is puzzle to Reuven. What are we speaking? Well, there was an Eid Echad who gave Leah the green light. In this case, just as Leah cannot go back to Shimon, we penalize her. It's a knas. She should have been more careful. Likewise, Rachel cannot go back to Reuven because we're sort of giving credence to this marriage. We're giving it sort of legitimacy. We're concerned with this marriage to the extent that we don't allow Leah back home, and therefore it may appear like Reuven has been married to Leah, and he shouldn't take Rachel because she looks like Achos Ishtay. Second part of Rabbi Yossi, Kol she'eina poisla de'acherim. There's no effect to Shimon. There's no effect on Reuven either. We're speaking that there was two Eidim that gave Leah the green light, in which case she can just go back home to Shimon. We sort of ignore what happened. Okay, so then Reuven can retake Rachel. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha presents it differently. Rabbi Yossi is focusing on one Eid who gave Leah the green light. And in that itself we have a distinction between whether Rachel and Reuven were merely engaged to each other. She was Arusa. So now people might speculate that the engagement didn't really work out. And that led Reuven to marry Leah, and it was a proper marriage. So now when Shimon returns, he can't retake Leah. It appears like he's being machse gerushasa after she had already married somebody else. Having said that, Reuven can't go back to Rachel either. If Reuven's marriage to Leah appears to be legitimate and valid, then he can't go back and marry Rachel, who's now appearing like the sister of his wife. This is a chiddush that people might think that the kedushin didn't work out. That's a chiddush l'chumra, and how we have a chiddush l'kula as well. Reuven and Rachel were married. There's no way that he can marry Leah now, who was the erva achos ishtay. So now when Shimon returns, after Reuven having been involved with Leah, Leah can just go back to Shimon. He's not machzah grusha mishenisses. She never married anybody else along the way. Reuven and Leah was invalid marriage. Because remember, the whole reason why an Isha can't go back home is not because of knas. It's because it appears like she had remarried in the interim. In this case, she didn't remarry anybody. Reuven and Leah had no proper marriage. And therefore, Reuven can go back to Rachel as well, who does not appear like a sister of his wife. She's his wife. So basically, Rabbi Yossi was presenting two things. Number one, a general perspective on the parak. The reason why an Isha doesn't go back home is because it appears like she had remarried in the interim. And now the former husband is retaking a gerusha. That's what it appears like. concerned about that appearance. Number two, he has a chumrah as well. That when there was only a kedushin between the husband and wife, people might think that didn't really materialize. And that leads to confusion. Amar v'damar Shmuel, halacha Rabbi Yossi. In fact, we follow Rabbi Yossi's sheet. The Gemara figures on both fronts. Number one, on the general attitude to the perek, his approach to the Isra of Ish going back home, which is only based on the concept of machzak rishasai. Number two, that when there was only a kedushin that took place, people might think that didn't really work out. So both concepts, in both things, we follow Rabbi Yosef. Maskef Rav Yosef asks Rav Yosef a kasha. We're going to have a steerer from one Shmuel and the other. Umiyar ma Shmuel hachi. Is that so that Shmuel follows Rav Yosef on both things? Even to the point that people might question the materialization of a kedushin. They might cast doubt on it, that it was conditioned and it wasn't really something that materialized. Is that so? We have a discussion between Rav and Shmuel concerning a Yevama. What is the status of a Yevama? Before Yevama. Rav Amar, Harei Keshes Ish, we treat it like an Eshes Ish. With Shmuel Amar, Ena Keshes Ish, we don't treat it like an Eshes Ish. What does this mean? Rav Huna gave an explanation. Kigoin was speaking, for instance, Shekidish Ochev Ish. We have Reuven and Shimon, two brothers. Reuven was merely Mekadesh an Isha, not married, but just engaged with an Isha. He skipped town. Everyone presumed that he died. Right? They heard that he passed away. And Shimon stepped forward. He married Rachel. Right? So Reuven engaged Rachel. He disappeared. Shimon thought he passed away without children. He went ahead and he did Yibum to Rachel. So what happens when Reuven returns? The Rav Amar, Harei Keshes Ish, V'asur Yavam. We treat her like a regular Ishes Ish who went and got involved with somebody else, thinking her husband passed away. What's the halacha? She can't come back to her husband upon his arrival. In this case as well, we treat her like an Ishes Ish who was Mezana, V'asur Yavam. She can't go back to the Yavam. In this case, Yavam just means the brother. Right? Two brothers are called Yavams. So she can't come back to her husband, Reuven, her chassan. Now, if Reuven would have actually married Rachel, then there wouldn't be a concern. You know why? Because although typically we don't allow Isha back home, as we explained, because we're concerned that people might think that the first one divorced her, the second one took her in, and here the first one is taking her back. But here we're speaking about brothers. Everybody knows that this was just a mistake, because Shimon has no business marrying his brother Reuven's wife Rachel. Right? Everybody realizes this thing was just a mistake. But in this case, right? So in that case, she would just go back home. But in this case, well, Reuven was just mekadesh. He did kedushin. Oh, says Rav. People might question. They might say, well, the kedushin apparently didn't really hold. It was conditioned on something which didn't materialize, and that explains why Shimon married Rachel. So now, when Reuven returns, he can't retake her. He can't take her back, right? Because look, he's taking back he's marrying his brother's wife. So she becomes usher on Reuven. That's Rav's approach. People might think the kedushin was conditional and didn't work out, and she was never really Reuven's wife. He has no business taking Rachel back after. Look, she's Shimon's wife, his sister-in-law. No business taking her. No. We don't treat it like an Eshes Ish. She can go back to Reuven. You know why? People won't question the kedushin. The fact is, Reuven had a kedushin with Rachel. Why should we think the kedushin expired? It was conditioned. It didn't material. No, it was a proper kedushin. In which case, everybody will realize that she's really meant for Reuven. This whole thing was just a mistake, and she can go back to Reuven. Clearly, Shmuel will never question kedushin. This is in contrast to the way we presented Shmuel before. Just a minute ago, we said Shmuel says halach Rabbi Yossi, and one of the things Rabbi Yossi tells us is that when there was merely a kedushin between the two, people might question the kedushin, might say, well, it didn't really hold up. And here he holds differently. Abai responds to Rav Yosef. How do you know that when Shmuel said, we follow Rabbi Yosef, Ad Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Kamer, he was passing like Rabbi Yosef the way Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha presented his Shita, which included this aspect as well. That people might say the Kedushin was a T'nai. No. Dilma Ad Rabbi Ami Kamer. Maybe we were taking Rabbi Ami's approach, which did not include this aspect at all. Rami never spoke about questioning the Kedushin. So it works. Shmuel is never concerned that people might cast the Kedushin in doubt. V'inami ad Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, and even if you'll say that Shmuel learned Rabbi Yossi like Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, well, remember there were two aspects, two separate, seemingly unrelated lessons incorporated into Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha's presentation. Mimayda apoisel. Look, there were two things that Rabbi Yossi was telling us. One was a general approach to the perek, that the whole reason why an Eshes Ish doesn't go back home is because it looks like she got divorced and remarried and you don't want to take her back. Maybe that he went along with. The Einoi Poisel aspect, right, which was the second thing that he told us. The Kula, in a case where Reuben was actually married to Rachel, and this whole episode occurred where Rachel and Shimon, right, disappeared. Reuben went over to Leah. But since she was married to Reuben, everybody understands that his marriage to Leah was erroneous, was a mistake. It was null and void. In which case, there's no concern with her with Leah going back to Shimon. It's not Machsa Gurushasa Mishanisis, there was no marriage in the interim between her and Reuben. And the reason why she shouldn't go back home is because it gives the appearance like Machsa Gurushasa, which is not applicable in this case. Well, this is a cooler, right? Remember? So just like Leah can go back to Shimon, so we don't give any credence to that marriage between Reuben and Leah, so Reuben can retake Rachel. It doesn't look like he's taking the sister of his wife, because Leah is not his wife. So maybe that he supported. When Shmuel says Halach Rabbi Yossi, it was that aspect of Rabbi Yossi, but not on the other aspect. The case where they're both usher. Remember, if Reuben was only engaged to Rachel, and this whole incident occurred where he went over to marry Leah, we say, well, 1 second. People might think that the engagement didn't really hold up, didn't materialize, in which case Reuben actually marries Leah. And now Leah can't go back to Shimon. And by the same token, Reuben can't retake Rachel, because it appears like Rachel is the Achos Ishtay, like the wife of his sister of his wife Leah. That's based on the precept of Tzanai Hayu B'Kedushin. People might question the validity of the Kedushin. He doesn't agree with that. Who says Shmuel went along with that aspect? Mimayda Apoisel. Who says he went along with the Poisel aspect, that the Leah is also to Shimon and Rachel is also to Reuven, when there was only a Kedushin, because it appears like the whole thing fell apart and there was a really a marriage between Reuven and Leah? No. Who says he's following that? V'duma any Poisel. Maybe it's only the second part, the positive aspect of Rabbi Yossi that he agrees with. That if Reuven and Rachel really married, then we're not concerned all around. It's clear to all that this interaction between Reuven and Leah was erroneous, was a mistake, based on false facts. And therefore Shimon can just retake Leah. It doesn't look like he divorced and she remarried, right? Which is really the whole reason why an Isha can't go back home. And therefore, if we disregard this Reuven Leah situation, then he can retake Rachel as well. It doesn't look like Achos Ishtay. Okay, that he agreed with, but not the other aspect of the Tanai B'Kedushin, in which case it's fully compatible and consistent with the other Shmuel. In the case of the two brothers, we're not concerned about people questioning the Kedushin. That's one teretz. Inami can have another teretz as well. You see, all the Gemara said was a Yevama. How do we treat her? Rav says Eshes Ish. Shmuel says not like an Eshes Ish. Now you chose to interpret it your way. We're speaking about missing people, etc. No. Perhaps it's unrelated to our whole topic here. Inami, another way to learn. Mimai de Isal Rav Huna. Who says Rav Huna's approach in explaining Rav Shmuel is correct, which has got us into a whole bunch of trouble here. Maybe we'll take a different approach than Rav Huna. When Rav says a Yevama is like an Eshes Ish, and Shmuel disagrees, it's regarding znus. Like Rav Huna speaks. Rav Huna, Shemeros Yavam Shizins, Asur Yavam. If an Isha waiting Yibam goes and interacts with a stranger, not the Yavam, we treat her like an Ashes Ish, and she can't go back to the Yavam. That's it. She loses that opportunity because a Yavam is bound, is meant for the Yavam. We treat her like almost like she's married to him. The Rav Amar Harei Ashes Ish. So Rav and Shmuel are disagreeing about this very fact. This very halacha. Rav says, yes, she's like an Ashes Ish. In which case, if she commits nus, she's also to go back to the Yavam. Shmuel Amar ain't an Ashes Ish. No, fact is, she's not yet married to the Yavam, and we don't treat her like an Ashes Ish. And even if she commits nus, she can go and approach the Yavam for Yibam. So perhaps that's one way to understand the machlekes, which we actually had back on the Sadik Beis. V'inami, another way to learn is regarding Kiddushin. Is she an Ashes Ish, and therefore nobody can apply Kiddushin to her, or not? V'inami b'Kiddushin Taisin b'Yavama Kamifli. Can a stranger apply Kiddushin to Yavama who is awaiting Yibam? Rav Amar, no. Harei Ashes Ish. V'lo yitafas about Kiddushin. We treat her like a married woman. Kiddushin can't take effect. Shmuel Amar ain't an Ashes Ish. She's not regarded like an Ashes Ish. She's awaiting Yibam, but she's not yet tied to him, not yet married to him. V'tafas about Kiddushin. We treat her like an unmarried woman with respect to Kiddushin. So if we interpret Rav and Shmuel in this way, it's unrelated to the missing people, unrelated to the whole sugya, and there's no contradiction. Asks the Gemara, but haven't we already discussed this shaila? Rav and Shmuel already had the same machlokes a couple of days ago. Why the repetition? They only spoke about it once, but the Bnei Yeshiva extracted one out of the other one. They made it into sort of two, and related it, differently, one time and the next. So therefore, it's really one same machlekes, and unrelated to missing people. Okay, let's do a quick summary of this very complicated daf. We started with the concept of Nes HaRa'oser. At times, when there's an inappropriate interaction, involvement, the fellow, the source of the Isser, the one who generates the Isser, can be affected as well. So we have three possible cases. Number one, Ashes Ish. The Isser here is the husband, who doesn't allow it to interact with anybody. She goes and she commits Znos, she interacts with others. Nes or Isser, she can't go back home. What about Achos Isha? Reuben is married to Rachel, and he goes and gets involved with Leah. According to one approach, yeah. Rachel becomes Asr, it's based on a Kal V'Chomer from Ashes Ish. If there it works, here it works. We have a disagreeing Shita, which says, no, Isa Shchivasa Yisarta, Ve'en Shchivas Achoisa Yisarta. Only a personal experience can affect you, but not your sister's experience. We have a similar machlokes regarding Chamoisi, if one interacts with his mother-in-law. According to one approach, it affects his wife. We learn from a pasuk Oisai ve'es hen, both are affected. The other Shita disagrees, does not accept this drush. Now going back to the Mishnah, where we have Reuben married to Rachel, Shimon to Leah, and thinking that Rachel and Shimon passed away, Reuben goes and gets involved with Leah. Both Shimon and Rachel return. Tanakama says, look, Leah cannot go back to Shimon like every Ish who got involved with a stranger. Whereas Reuben and Rachel can continue life as usual. Rabbi Yossi says, look, you can't split the two. Either Rachel and Leah are both okay or both not okay. According to Rav Ami's approach, he was drawing the line between whether the heter came about through one aid or two aid. If Leah was allowed to remarry by way of one aidus, of one aid, and as we know, when it turns out to be mistaken, she cannot go back home. Just as Leah can't go back to Shimon, Rachel can't go back to Reuben, because now it looks like we give some credibility to this marriage between Reuben and Leah, and therefore Rachel appears like a Achos Isha. But Kol she'enei poisad de'echerem, if this involvement doesn't affect Leah and Shimon, such as where there were two Edom that gave her the green light, so she can just go back to Shimon. We disregard this whole episode. Likewise, Reuben can retake Rachel. According to Ritzach Nafcha, Rabbi Yossi was actually focusing on the heter of one aid, and even there, he found the heter. So everything goes hand in hand. Rachel and Leah either both mutter or both us. But it all depends what happened between Rachel and Reuven. If they were merely engaged, then everybody's asr. Because people might speculate, might think there was a Tanai the Kedushin that didn't really materialize, which allows Reuven to go and get involved with Leah and marry her. So we attribute credence to that marriage, in which case now when Shimon returns, Leah can't go back to him. Because remember, the whole reason why an Ish doesn't go back home, according to Rabbi Yossi, is so that it doesn't appear like he's retaking his Gerusha once she had remarried. In this case, we have that concern. It appears like she had remarried. She was married to Reuven. And for the same reason, by the same token, Reuven can't go back to Rachel, because now it appears like Rachel is just a sister of his wife. But Kol She'enei Poisel Dei Achirim, if it doesn't affect Shimon, this interaction with Leah is disregarded with respect to Shimon. For instance, if Reuven and Rachel were really married, and everybody came back, it looks like this whole thing was just a mistake. In which case we disregard Reuven and Leah's relationship. And now it doesn't appear like Leah ever married anybody aside from Shimon. She should go back to Shimon. By the same token, by extension, Reuven will go back to Rachel. Then a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel regarding a Yevamo. Rav says Keshes Ish. Shmuel says Ene Keshes Ish. We had three pshatim. Rav Huna's pshat, which brought about a kasha, because Rav Huna learned that we're speaking where there were two brothers, and one brother married thinking the other brother passed away. Rav says, she can't go back to the first brother. We're speaking that it was only a kedushin. People think it didn't hold up, and she was really married to the next brother, and she can't go back to the first brother. And Shmuel says, no. Even a kedushin, how often does a kedushin fall apart? Everybody knows she was really the first brother's wife, she can go back to him. That's one pshat. Second pshat was, if the Yevamo committed znus, do we treat her like an Eshes Ish, which makes her asr or not? Third pshat is, according to Rab, she's an Eshes Ish, like an Eshes Ish, and therefore kedushin can't be applied to her. Shmuel says she's not like an Eshes Ish, in which case even if a stranger approaches her and the Mekadosh her, the kedushin hold up. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.